My children abandoned me on the road. After my husband's funeral, but they don't know I hold the key to their downfall. My name is Margaret Ellington, and I'm 65 years old. People say that at this age a woman should find peace in her memories, quiet afternoons in a small garden, warm cups of tea on cold winter days. But peace left my life the day Edward, my husband of over 40 years, took his last breath in my arms. The funeral was held on a bleak morning. The sky was the color of ash, and fine mist clung to my silver hair. Our old estate, built with a lifetime of hard work, loomed silently over the rolling vineyards. The vines had begun to wither, much like my heart after a season of storms. Guests came and went, offering condolences. They spoke of Edward as a strong man, a fair businessman, a devoted husband. I forced polite smiles, nodding along, while inside there was only emptiness. From now on, I would walk a world without the echo of his footsteps in the hallway, without the rich scent of wine as he opened barrels to taste. When the last mourner left and the door clicked shut, the house became a cavern of cold silence. I sat alone in the parlor, my trembling hands clutching the armrest of an antique chair. On the wall hung our faded wedding photo, Edward in his cream suit, me in a simple white dress. Together we had built everything from nothing, transforming Ellington Estate into a vineyard known far and wide. To me, it wasn't just a business. It was blood, memory, and family. I told myself that after the funeral my children would come home. We would gather around the old oak dining table, reminiscing about harvest seasons, winter nights by the fire, and Edward's booming laugh as he told stories. I believed that our grief would draw us closer. I was wrong. That evening, as candlelight flickered in the darkened parlor, Alexander and Emily arrived, my son and daughter, yet strangers in that moment. Alexander wore a dark, sharp suit, his tie knotted tight, his expression colder than the autumn wind. Emily floated in wearing a scarlet silk dress, her makeup flawless, as if she were heading to a gala instead of returning from her father's burial. Neither shed a tear. Not a single drop of grief for the man they once called Daddy. In their eyes glimmered only calculation. Alexander dropped a thick folder onto the oak table. The sound cracked like a gunshot in the still room, making me flinch. Emily offered a sweet smile, the same one she had when she was a child, but now it felt like the blade of a dagger. "Dad left everything to us, Mother," Alexander said, his voice low and decisive. I stared at the papers. Edward's signature sprawled neatly across the page, each letter steady, perfect, as if printed. My heart sank. In his final months, his hands trembled so violently he couldn't sign a grocery receipt, let alone a pristine will. In that dim room, with shadows dancing on the walls, a terrible truth began to unfold. My children hadn't come home to mourn their father. They had come to divide, conquer, and take. I sat frozen, listening to the wind whistle through the shutters, feeling my heart crack piece by piece. A part of me refused to believe it, but Alexander's steely gaze and Emily's sly smirk spoke volumes. This was only the beginning of my tragedy. The parlor that night felt like a cathedral abandoned by God. The chandelier's glow reflected off the legal folder, making it look sharper, deadlier. My hands clenched the chair's carved arms as Alexander sat across from me, fingers drumming an impatient rhythm on the polished wood. Emily stood behind him, arms crossed, lips curled in amusement. "This is a valid will, Mother," Alexander said with rehearsed authority. "Father signed it before he passed. All assets, including Ellington Estate, are now under our management. 40 years of shared life had made me an expert in Edward's handwriting. His signature had always been bold, yet elegant, leaning slightly to the left, his strokes unsteady in his illness's later stages. But this one, it was flawless. Too flawless. Son, my voice cracked. This isn't your father's signature. He couldn't have signed like this in his final days. Alexander's smirk deepened. Father was sharper than you give him credit for. He made the right decision for this family, and he trusted us. Emily stepped forward, her tone honeyed, cloying. Mom, we're doing this for you. You've done so much, worked so hard your whole life. You deserve rest, care. We've found a beautiful retirement center. You'll have friends your age, activities, private nurses. You'll be happy there. Her words landed like a verdict. I wasn't just Edward's widow, not just a mother. I was the heart and hands of Ellington Estate. Every vine, every oak barrel bore the mark of our sweat and devotion. And now, my own children saw it as nothing more than a transaction. I took a deep breath, forcing calm. What are you planning for the estate? For your father's vineyards? Emily glanced at her brother, then said lightly, We've secured an international buyer. They're offering over $30 million. Enough for all of us, and you, to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. We'll sell. Quickly. Her words were another knife to the chest. I pictured the lush green rows of vines razed to dirt, replaced with cold steel and glass, anonymous streets cutting through our land. Edward's life's work, my sacrifices, our family's legacy, traded for numbers on a screen. I reached for the folder with trembling hands, flipping through the legal jargon. The sharp, perfect signature at the end sealed the betrayal. My throat tightened. This isn't real, I whispered hoarsely. Edward would never. He loved this land more than life. This is forgery. Alexander leaned back, his smile a thin blade. Stop being stubborn, it's over. The law is on our side. Father trusted us, not you. Emily's hand landed softly on my shoulder, her voice like a lullaby. Mom, please, let us handle things. You're too old to manage. This estate alone. Let us take care of you. Her touch sent a chill straight through me. I stared at my children, the same ones who once chased fireflies in these vineyards, who once clung to me when thunderstorms scared them. And all I saw were strangers. In that moment, Edward's voice echoed in my mind. Legacy isn't land. It's the soul of our family. Sell it, and you betray our bloodline. Tears refused to fall. They had all dried at the funeral. I sat there silent and understood the bitter truth. I had lost my husband and my children. The room thickened with tension. Outside, the wind howled like the sobbing vines. I closed the folder, my voice eerily calm. I'll need time to think. You'll have your answer tomorrow. Alexander shrugged, confident. Emily withdrew her hand, her eyes glinting with victory. They believed I was broken, that I had surrendered. But in that frigid, candlelit parlor, I knew the real war had only begun. The next morning, sunlight streamed through lace curtains, into a kitchen that once smelled of Edward's laughter and fresh bread. I sat clutching a cup of tea, clinging to a fragile hope that my children might soften, might remember love. But their footsteps on the stairs crushed that illusion. Alexander appeared in his tailored suit, Emily trailing in her silk blouse, the scent of perfume smothering the smell of coffee. They didn't look like grieving children. They looked like executives closing a deal. Alexander's voice was curt. We've decided. Today you'll come with us. Just pack the essentials. We'll handle the rest. Where? My voice was low, wary. Emily smiled sweetly. To the retirement center, Mom. You'll be happier there than in this cold, empty house. I looked around the kitchen. Edward's handiwork The patched walls, the handmade shelves, the jars of grape preserves I'd sealed every winter seemed to breathe softly, alive with memory. To them, this was just a burden, a relic. "This is my home," I whispered. "Your father's home, my life." "Enough," Alexander snapped, his words sharp as glass. "You can't manage it. Accept it. We've already made arrangements." He set a small suitcase beside me, packed without asking what I'd want to bring. A quiet declaration. I was now a burden, ready to be shipped off. My heart twisted, but I didn't cry. I simply nodded, rose, and let them believe I'd submitted. Fighting now would be like throwing stones at a mountain. The sleek car rolled out of the estate gates, the familiar road stretching before me. Through the window, I watched the vineyard shimmer in the sun, clusters of grapes glowing like drops of blood. Edward once stood there, shears in hand, with his warm smile. I clenched my lips, holding on to that memory like a flickering flame. The car drove on endlessly before suddenly turning onto a desolate dirt road. Around us stretched open fields, the wind whistling through skeletal trees. I turned to Alexander, my chest tightening. "This isn't the way to the retirement home." He pulled over, face expressionless. Unlocking the door, he turned to me, his tone casual, as if scheduling an appointment. "This is where you get out." I froze. Emily flinched. What are you doing?" Alexander's voice was icy. "Don't you get it? Keeping her around will only complicate things, contest the will. This is the simplest solution. She has clothes, medicine. There's a gas station 5 miles up the road. She'll manage." He yanked my suitcase out and dropped it by the roadside. Emily's gaze flickered, uneasy, but she said nothing. The door slammed and the car roared away, leaving behind a cloud of dust and a deafening silence. I stood there, abandoned. Petsting. Wind tugged at my silver hair, slipping through my coat with the scent of wild grass. The suitcase at my feet felt weightless, like my life, discarded by the very children I raised. And yet, I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. In that moment of betrayal, a new strength stirred within me. They thought I was helpless, a burden. But they'd forgotten. I still had my heart, my memories, and a secret they knew nothing about. I watched their car shrink into the horizon and whispered, "You've just made the biggest mistake of your lives." I bent down, lifted the suitcase, and walked to the side of the road. It was light, too light. Inside, there was nothing of my life's memories, only a few clothes and medicine. That was all it took to discard a mother. But they'd forgotten something I had kept hidden for decades. I unlatched the suitcase and reached into a secret pocket. My trembling hand closed around a small iron box, old and battered, darkened by time. Edward and I had hidden it behind a panel in our bedroom wall, a safeguard for moments like this. Holding it to my chest, I felt both grief and resolve. Inside were papers I'd kept secret for decades. Among the yellowing documents was one slim folder, the deed to a 15-acre plot separate from the main estate. But it wasn't just any land. It was the source of the vineyard's only water well, the lifeblood of the entire Ellington estate. I remembered Edward's words as we'd stood there years ago, bathed in golden sunset. "Margaret, this land will be in your name. If our family ever faces a storm, this will be our shield. Without water, no one can run or destroy this vineyard." Back then, I'd laughed, thinking he worried too much. But standing alone on that windswept road, abandoned by my own blood, I understood. Edward had foreseen this day. The deed bore my name, bold and unmistakable, Margaret Ellington. I placed the papers back into the box, tucking it into my handbag. I was no longer a discarded widow. I was the only one holding the key to the estate's survival. I turned my back on the direction of the gas station and began walking toward town. Each step was a vow. I would not let Ellington Estate fall into greedy hands, not even my children's. Rain began to fall, cold drops soaking my face and clothing. I wrapped my coat tighter and pressed on, memories rushing back. Edward's laughter during harvest, the warmth of family dinners by the fire, the sound of Alexander and Emily's laughter when they were small. My heart ached, but I knew love couldn't mean surrender to betrayal. 2 hours later, the glow of a familiar sign cut through the rain. Miller's Grocery. I pushed open the door, dripping wet. Mr. Miller, our old friend, gasped at the sight of me, quickly offering a towel and a seat. "Mrs. Ellington, what on earth? Why are you out here alone? I thought your children were taking care of you." I forced a smile, swallowing the lump in my throat. "They're taking care of me, in their way. But I need to use your phone, urgently." He nodded, ushering me into the back room. I dialed a number etched into my memory. Thomas Hall, Edwards, lifelong friend and our family lawyer, the one who held the true will. His voice crackled through the receiver. "Margaret, I've been trying to find you. Alexander filed a will yesterday, but it doesn't match the one Edward and I finalized." I knew something was wrong. Relief and fury mingled in my chest. "Thomas, I need to see you immediately. I have something that will change everything." I hung up the phone, my hands trembling, not with fear, but with power. That evening, rain still pouring outside, I sat in Thomas's dimly lit office. The scent of polished wood and old paper filled the air. Memories of Edward signing contracts here came flooding back. I recounted everything: the funeral, the false will, the betrayal, and being abandoned by the roadside. My voice was steady, though every word sliced deep. Thomas's face darkened as he listened. "Let me see what you brought." I placed the iron box before him, and he carefully examined the deed and documents. His eyes sharpened. "Margaret, this is your ace. The well and its water rights are in your name. They can't sell the estate without your consent. They think they've won, but you hold all the power." A wave of strength surged through me. For decades, I'd been Edward's quiet partner, supporting him from the shadows. Now I wasn't just defending land. I was defending Edward's honor, his life's work. Thomas looked up, resolute. "Their will is a forgery. Edward couldn't have signed so perfectly from hospice care. I'll file for an injunction immediately. We'll freeze any sale." I nodded, my heart pounding. "I don't want revenge," I whispered. "I just want the truth. I want Edward's legacy protected." "You'll have both," Thomas said, firmly. "Truth and justice." The next day, Thomas filed the motion. By nightfall, the court issued an emergency freeze on all transactions involving Ellington Estate. Word spread like wildfire. The international buyers withdrew instantly, unwilling to risk a lawsuit. Overnight, their golden deal turned to ashes. That evening, as I sat in my small rented apartment, a message popped up on my burner phone. "Mom, please call us. We need to talk. Alexander is panicking. We didn't know about the land. Please give us a chance. Emily." I stared at the message. A part of me longed for an apology, but there was none, only fear of losing money. I placed the phone down, unanswered. Later, Thomas called. Alexander rang the office, yelling for answers. I told him everything now goes through the courts. He has no power. For the first time in months, I exhaled, the scales finally tipping away from them. That night I sat on my balcony clutching the iron box. The rain had stopped, and the town below glimmered with warmth and life. Few would ever know of the war quietly raging just beyond their streets. I whispered to Edward, feeling his spirit, near. "I've done it, love. I've stood up. They thought I was weak. But silence made me stronger, and tonight I fight for you. The rain had finally stopped. The night breeze carried the scent of ripe grapes drifting from distant vineyards. For the first time since the funeral, I didn't feel like a lost widow. I felt like a guardian. This was only the beginning. Days of rain followed, the sky heavy and gray. I rocked gently in a worn chair, tea cooling in my hand, bracing myself for the storm I knew was coming. It arrived one evening, pounding on my apartment door. I opened it to find Alexander and Emily, drenched, though not by rain. Fear had replaced their arrogance. Emily rushed inside, eyes wide. "Mom, please. We need to talk." Alexander's voice was a growl. "Why are you doing this? Why are you ruining everything?" The tiny living room became a battleground. Emily sank into a chair, hands twisted together, tears glistening. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fear. "Mom," she pleaded, "we didn't know about the well. If we had, we wouldn't have done it. We just wanted a new start, a chance to change our lives. Please, sign the papers. You'll be comfortable, safe. You won't want for anything." Her words tore at me, but I could see through them. Money was all they saw, never love. Alexander prowled the room like a caged animal, his temper snapping. "You think one plot of land, one well, can stop us? You're destroying yourself." I met his glare. Gone was the boy who used to run through vineyards hand in hand with his father. Before me stood a man consumed by greed. I placed my cup down, voice steady and sharp. "No, Alexander, you're destroying yourselves. You've forgotten what this legacy is. It's not property to barter. It's your father's soul. It's my life's work." Emily sobbed, clutching my hands. "We didn't mean it. We didn't mean to hurt you." I pulled away, steel in my voice. "Not mean it? Leaving me on a dirt road to die? That wasn't meant. Forging your father's signature? That wasn't meant. If I hadn't survived to expose this, would you be here now, begging?" Silence fell, heavy as the storm outside. Alexander's anger broke the quiet. "You've chosen to fight us, fine, but when this all collapses, you'll pay for it." I rose, trembling, not from fear, but from decades of silence finally breaking. "Pay? I've paid my whole life for my silence, my sacrifices. But today, I choose truth. You tried to sell your father's grave, my memories, this family's soul, and now you will pay." A flash of lightning lit their faces, pale and defeated. Emily's tears flowed, but still she whispered, "Mom, we're still family." I stared at her, my voice breaking yet unyielding. Family doesn't betray. Family doesn't abandon each other like trash. The day you chose money over blood, you stopped being my children. The storm raged, thunder roaring like judgment. They said nothing. They weren't my children anymore. They were strangers. I turned to the window, whispering to Edward. I did what needed to be done. They thought silence was weakness, but silence forged strength. Today, I spoke for us. That confrontation marked the end of something deep in my heart. The estate we'd poured our lives into no longer felt like home. Its walls held too much sorrow. To heal, I needed a new start. I moved into a modest apartment above a bakery. Each morning, the smell of fresh bread drifted through the window. I watched children ride bikes, old men read papers, neighbors laugh in the square. Life still bloomed. I turned my balcony into a sanctuary, herbs in clay pots, a few miniature grapevines. The vineyard was gone, but my hands still knew the rhythm of nurturing life. I started teaching embroidery classes at the community center, my needlework and stories weaving hope into those rooms. I held workshops at the library, teaching families about organic farming, showing children how to care for the earth. I wasn't just protecting a vineyard anymore. I was planting seeds for the future. When I signed the deed transferring water rights to the town's agricultural co-op, I knew no corporation would ever own Ellington's lifeblood again. Edward's legacy was now safeguarded by the very community we loved. I sometimes thought back to that rainy road, to the moment I was left behind. That pain became my rebirth. I wasn't just a discarded widow. I was a teacher, a storyteller, a guardian. Rumors swirled about Alexander and Emily. Deals crumbled, reputations shattered. But I felt no satisfaction, no need for revenge. Justice had already spoken. One crisp autumn evening I visited the vineyard. The grapes glistened in the golden light, untouched by greed. They belonged to the land, to the people, to Edward. A smile broke across my face as I heard his voice in the wind. "You did it, Margaret. You kept our soul alive." "I did, love," I whispered, "and now I'll live. Not to fight, but to live." I had been reborn. To anyone listening to my story, if you've been betrayed, cast aside, made invisible by those you love most, remember, your worth isn't defined by their eyes. It's rooted deep within you, in what you choose to protect, in the strength you summon when you say no. Strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet act of standing firm. I am Margaret Ellington, not the woman left on the side of the road, but the keeper of a legacy, a woman who learned to live again. If someone tells you, this is where you stop, don't believe them. Keep walking, even if your feet bleed, because on that road you may just find yourself again.